What up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the RDJ Report. I'm your host, Pablo, and joining me, as always, is Mr. Brian Schultz. Avengers Doomsday. A lot of different things coming out regarding that movie. I'm not going to say his name, but I was talking to a friend, and he told me, yo, those concepts, that's for real. But is it before Russo's took over or after? That they didn't know. So we got concept art that got leaked, and people are sort of now, or have been talking about. I think the conversation has sort of died down, but we'll get into that. We'll get into the rumor. I don't know if this is a rumor. I don't think this is a rumor, but Robert Downey Jr. writing Doom's backstory.
Oh, this is not a rumor. This is the Russos confirmed.
Okay,
this. So this is not a rumor.
So that's happening. And how do you feel about that? Really? Because didn't he write Dr. Dolittle, a piece of it? He wrote some of that, and that was a disaster. Then there is some rumors regarding Spider-Man 4, and this actually taking place as a direct sequel to Doomsday. That makes a little bit of sense. A direct sequel to Doomsday and right before Secret Wars. That gives us, Brian, the sort of formula that Marvel ran on to lead to certain movies. So let's start with Doom. Robert Downey Jr., sorry. He is apparently writing Dr. Doom's backstory. Listen, I told Brian I'm out. I'm out until I see it, right? Like, I don't want to go. I'll see what everybody else saying, and then, but if it's anything that I think it would be, what do you think, Brian? Is this Robert Downey Jr.? I want to do this. Okay, okay, Robert. What do you think about this?
Yeah, this is what you signed up for when you decided that in order to save your failing Avengers project, what you really needed was Robert Downey to return, but this time in a villainous role. I mean, did we really think it was going to go any other way? Did we think he was literally going to be like, show up at the press conference and be like, hey, I'm just here to play my role and do whatever coach tells me to do? Come on. He's sitting there polishing his Oscar being like, yeah, you want me to get out of bed and shoot more movies like this, and you want me to put on a mask and hide my pretty face for a part of this movie. He's like, you're going to do it the way I want to do it. And that's all there is to it. Take it or leave it. Not like I need the money.
Yeah.
He's like, we also found out, by the way, just to be clear, had he not done this movie, he was going to be in the Odyssey.
Yes.
As what? Yes. We don't know. But point being, he probably would have been just fine for work had he not done this. So I'm not surprised. So here's the story. It's in Variety. The quote is from the Russos, so there's no rumor.
Okay.
Joe and Anthony Russo said, it has been a very intense process developing the character of Dr. Doom with Robert Downey. He's, quote, he's so immersed in it, meaning Downey. He's so dialed in. He's writing the backstory, the costume ideas. We were just on the phone with him this morning before we got here talking about it. He just loves really rich three-dimensional characters, and he sees a real opportunity with the character, end quote. So this is Doom 100% by, for, and with Robert Downey Jr.
Are you out?
Yeah, look, we've talked about it from the beginning, but I think this is a commercial decision. It's not a creative decision, and I think that this just is what I would have expected. I would have expected that he would call the shots. I would have expected that he would not adhere to the lore, that he would rework the story to basically be around his own sensibilities. And I just question that you're going to get anything that looks really recognizable as comics accurate Dr. Doom. It's just going to be Robert Downey as Doom and his version of Doom.
And this is just a small chance of this possibly happening, but I would hope that similar to the way they did Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man, and that sort of reimagining can take place here, that we are not I was going to use the word appalled, but that we are not, I was going to say disgusted, but that we are not taken completely away and far out there, that we don't connect with what they have done with Doom. Doom has a very specific, he has a few backgrounds, details of what his life was. We know it. They did a series on it, the Book of Doom or something like that. It's like 4 books where he talks about his life growing up and who he was. Interesting book. I don't know if I ever sent you that voice character Doom that they did, but it's an excellent book, and it would have been dope to see, or it would be dope to see some sort of series done on that, on the life of Doom. But is a thing that scares me and should scare everyone that is a fan of Doom. Doom is that dude. If he doesn't come off that way, which he hasn't in previous films with the past iterations of Fantastic Four films, I can't explain how much of a disappointment this would be. It could be disastrous is what it could. So many words, so many things I can say about this, desperation being one of them, that they had to sort of, I guess, submit to their current state and have to go this far as to give up control, pretty much, Brian. Control of the creative aspects of this character. I have a trust sensitivity to the Russos because of what they've done in this genre. Outside of it,
you got to put that piece on the end. Because they've been a terrible outside, including the Electric State, which literally has almost ruined Netflix's film department.
It's like you are the best steak cooker, but chicken, you got a problem with. Don't do chicken, man. Keep on doing your steaks. That's what's working for you. Stay away from the chicken. You know what I'm saying? Because that's what it is. They're good at this one thing, yo. Yeah. Keep on doing that. And not to say that Extraction and some of the things that they were involved in, but some of the things that they took on themselves, because Extraction was, I think, it was produced by them. It wasn't
Sam Hargrave directed it. That's correct. They've had zero success directing, no matter the budget, and they've been big, right? So the list now is, first off, Electric State, just to pivot on this because Pablo brought it up. Electric State is the most expensive movie in Netflix history. Rumored budget $350 million.
Crazy.
It was so big that Netflix has basically had to rethink its film department, and the reviews are horrendous. So Chris Pratt, Millie Bobby Brown, Rotten Tomatoes at last check, I think was like 22%. Like, this thing looks like just an absolute turd. And it follows on the heels of Gray Man, which was a $250 million bust for Netflix that nobody liked. Citadel, $300 million spy series for Amazon Prime, that was a disappointment, and then came with a spinoff that nobody watched. Also follows, they had a Tom Holland starred Cherry, that didn't land. They had some smaller movies as well that didn't work. As you said, when they've directed outside of the MCU, they've had no success in the film world. It has really been MCU only where they have had wins, but they've had amazing wins, as we know, and Winter Soldier, Civil War, and Infinity War, and Endgame. Like, this is the one thing they seem able to do well, which is why they're here.
Just cook that steak, baby. Yeah. That's it. Don't stay away from the chicken.
Yeah.
And so
what is Schwartz at the beginning of Predator when they're talking to Schwarzenegger's team, right? And he's like, "We're a rescue team, not assassins." And then they're like, "We need the best. That's why you're here. That's the one. Yeah. You're here for this. That's what they're. That's it. That's why they're here." It.
Go to town on superhero because that's your thing. This other stuff you're trying to do, nah. And if you would have thought, I don't know, after those few first failures, you would have thought some people would have be like, all right, that's it. We're not giving you 300. Are you kidding me? When you have other directors who have a vision about something and these guys come in and get $350 million. Granted, they did give you the Civil War, whatever. They gave you that. We know what they gave us.
It's
but that is not enough. But whatever. Let's see what happens.
They're the new. They're kind of the new Wachowskis, right? I mean, that's kind of where we're at, right?
Wow.
How long did the Wachowskis live off the first Matrix movie? They got huge budget.
Yeah,
Speed Racer, Jupiter Ascending, Cloud Atlas,
yeah.
And then they came back to do Matrix, and this is what we're trying to avoid. We hope that the Russo's return goes a little better, but I'm just saying, like,
we don't want to see Matrix. What was the last one? What was the last one called?
Resurrections.
Yeah, that's concerning. That is concerning that we get something not up to par. What you were originally good at, now you're giving me overdone steaks and raw steaks because you ain't cooking right. You're just giving me the sear. Oh man, it's scary, man. It's scary.
It is. But let's get into some story stuff, because I do think there's a couple of interesting nuggets that came out in the past week that I think are at least caught my attention. So again, we know the story is being rewritten. They've said it's being rewritten.
Yes.
One of the things that got sent into the rumor mill when the concept art leaked, and we'll talk about that, is how do you set up Doom as the villain or foil for Kang, knowing that Disney has to effectively unwind the Jonathan Majors storylines, but not seem like they've just abandoned them entirely. So this is what one rumor is of what they came up with. That Downey's Doom on his world has become aware of the timelines and is basically will stop at nothing to ensure that his timeline is the one that survives, even if it means having to destroy all the others. However, his timeline is not the sacred timeline, the one that He Who Remains sought to preserve at all costs. And it's that brings the two of them into conflict. And that one of the thrusts of this story, and this is what got me interested, is that it is effectively a race between the heroes and Doom of the different realities. So this is how they would bring back a lot of the old people. A race between all of these different people who are trying to preserve their own universe, i.e. they're the hero of their own story. And they're in a race to get to who? To get to Loki, holding all the strands at the end of time. And that's the propulsive narrative of Doomsday. And along the way, Doom, because he is more aware of everything else that's going on, is hunting He Who Remains and ultimately destroys Kang to kind of wipe the board ahead of Secret Wars. What do you think about that as an idea to try to fix this mess effectively, but make it seem cool and bring Loki back in?
The Loki part of it, anything Loki and the possibility of Thor being on screen together again is always interest of mine. Curiosity seeps in when I think about how they are going to be able to wrap this Kang storyline out. How they do that's because if they do it cheesy, then it's like it's sort of, you know what I'm saying? If they do it within like the first 10, 15 minutes or whatever, right? Or perhaps this is the entirety of the movie, which would be better. But who's Kang? I don't know. Hence the rumor that they were trying to possibly or thinking about bringing Jonathan Majors back would be interesting. It would be interesting how they pull that off. I'd see that, to see how they pull it off. Excitement, I don't know, because you haven't built that excitement. It's not just on because Robert Downey Jr. is Doom. No. I'm here as a spectator to see how you get this done. And if it works, because again, we had concerns with No Way Home. Too much going on, and they pulled it off. Happy to be wrong on things of that nature. This one has that same sort of concern. Too much going on. How they're going to do this? How they're going to wrap this up? There's a lot of questions.
So it got me thinking that because we've heard a lot about Downey kind of being in every scene of Doomsday, and then I hear this about like, hey, you got all this different heroes from different timelines racing to save their timeline. So then it got me thinking, okay, how do you build up Doom without having the time you had with Thanos and get to Secret Wars feeling like this guy's the guy and he's going to be impossible to stop? I'm not saying it's perfect, but I do think one of the ways you can do that is in this, if it is this race against time, literally, is you live that race primarily through Doom's eyes and you have him destroy the heroes that you know and love, but they're variants of them along the way. That is one way to do it, right? So it's like Chris Evans' variant shows up. Like, this is also how you get them in both movies if you want it, right? So it'd be like Chris Evans shows up as a variant of himself in Doomsday, gets killed by Downey, and you count on the emotional gravitas for the audience of seeing that on screen. But then like in Secret Wars, you're getting like a different version of Steve back for the final hero. You see what it's like? That way you can kind of get these actors to get a chance to play the role differently, but then they get a death on screen that builds up Downey along the way. He wins all of these individual battles basically, to get to Loki, and then that sets up kind of the showdown and the save the day and the Secret Wars. I'm not saying it's perfect, but it did get me thinking. I'm like, all right, there is a little something there of you can build up Doom by having him kill name actors and name heroes, and you just hope it's not done as ham-handedly as it was done in Doctor Strange 2. That's like you hold your breath and just hope it's not as bad. But granted, that was a COVID. In fairness to Marvel, that was a COVID scene, right? We know that they couldn't shoot those guys. None of them were on set together, so they had to splice together this weird set piece. I'll give him a little pass on that. But what do you think about that? The idea of like, we're going to make Doom fearsome by having him off a whole bunch of Avengers from different storylines.
If he is in this as much as they say he is in it, then that makes sense to see it from his perspective. And him having those interactions, for how those first interactions occur, will be interesting to see. And I would assume that he's going to be doing this all under the mask. I think the smart way to go about this is for him to be not shown up until the end of Secret Wars.
No, if they
right?
Judge Dredd this, that's a huge mistake. A huge mistake. And anyone just Google it. Judge Dredd, helmet Stallone, you'll get it.
Yeah.
Like,
that would make sense to see Doom assessing some of what we already know as far as what has transpired and what is happening.
Because you do have to make it clean, right? Like, one of the things about Thanos, the way that was so well organized, is the stones made it very linear and very kinetic for him, where it was like, okay, we know the mission because we've known it for years, and they could use Infinity War for him to kind of move from place to place with a specific thing in mind. And we knew that and understood it. This has to be simple enough for the layman's audience to be able to latch onto it after all of the confusion and all of the chaos. So I did think like if this is what they came up with as a rewrite, I was like, that's not terrible as like a way to at least cut through some of the BS. Now, the other thing that came out that I want your reaction to, which kind of got me like, oh, that makes sense, is a rumor that Spider-Man 4, Tom Holland's Spider-Man 4, is actually Avengers 5.5. It is an Avengers sequel movie between Doomsday and Secret Wars. The second I saw that, I said, Destin Cretton, supposed to do Avengers 5, got reassigned to do Spider-Man 4. And it was like, we know Tom Rothman. What did he want Spider-Man 4 to be? Big, multiverse. And they were at an impasse, right? Maybe this was the olive branch. Maybe Marvel was like, wait a minute, we can use this because what do we not have enough of? Time. We need time with our characters. So if we turn Spider-Man 4 into the Civil War of this progression, maybe everybody wins. What do you think about that idea that Spider-Man 4 is going to be more of a hidden Avengers movie than a Spider-Man movie?
That makes more sense because originally we wanted a more grounded. We wanted Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man.
I still want that. To be clear, I still want that.
Absolutely. But for the sake of the success of Secret Wars, they're trying to leverage that possibility of creating a multiverse, still in the vein of what leads up to Secret Wars. And and so it's not so standalone-ish. It just makes sense to do what they did with Civil War, which was a huge movie, because after No Way Home made how much? 1 point what?
$2 billion.
It's like, you're not going to get Funny Neighborhood Spider-Man. You could probably get to $1 billion, but with what story?
I think it'd be over. I mean, Far From Home made $1 billion, $1 billion. I mean, that, yeah, so. But you're right. You're right. 2? No, it's not making 2. You're right.
Yeah. So, in order for them to have the success that they want with Secret Wars, they have to put something in the middle to sort of continue that ascension of excitement towards Secret Wars, especially if Doomsday, the hope is that Doomsday doesn't disappoint. That's the hope, that it does not disappoint. So, yeah, let's see what happens with that, because it is interesting to see what storyline that they'll do for that. I'm not interested in seeing again Tobey Maguire, Andrew Garfield. We saw it. That was, but I don't know what they're going to do there.
I agree, but this gives them an excuse to do it and try to not have it feel old, I think. Because you always have to marry the business end of this with the creative end of this, right? And that's why I keep going back to, like, Sony's stuck on their perch of, like, we're the lead distributor. This is what we want. Bigger is better. We know that Rothman's not a good judge of comic book storytelling. We've seen this over and over and over again. But I don't hate this idea, because I don't think it takes Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man off the board for Spider-Man 5 if you then just make Spider-Man 4 a quasi-Avengers movie and say we're going to do this in 3 parts instead of 2 because we messed up so many things along the way here. We just can't solve this in 1 2.5 hour, 3 hour movie. Like, I agree with that. So there is a piece of me that's at least intrigued. I'm not saying it's going to be great. I'm hesitant, but I'm at least intrigued by the idea that this Secret Wars saga will now be stretched over 8 hours as opposed to, rushed into 5. I just think it could help if everyone is on the same page here. So it made sense. Let's put it that way. When I heard it, I was like, of the things you could do, that is definitely not the worst option out there.
One thing that I just thought about, and how they tell their story from the perspective of Doom. Doom has to be like taking a dump on the current state of this MCU or this timeline or what's. We have to see it from. We're seeing it from his perspective. That will be dope, but his perspective is this: what's happening is horrible. He sort of has to diss the MCU in a way, but in a more, that we agree with him. Like, this is horrible. This timeline, what they've done here.
He's Deadpooling
garbage, whatever.
No, this is Deadpool without the fourth wall. That's what he's doing in a serious way. I agree with you. And the other thing that made me think that story might have a little bit of juice to it is, if we assume that this Doom is originating from the same Earth as where Fantastic Four First Steps is, that's just adding fuel to this fire that I think that reality is the new MCU.
Yes, yes.
It makes sense, right? That's how he would destroy 616 and basically be like, to your point, that wouldn't be the only one he destroys, but he'd basically be going through and being like, I'm the hero. That's the key. Doom is the savior of this storyline. He's the hero for his people in his time, and he's going to take a superiority complex toward all the other ones and be like, they're not worthy. And here's why they're not worthy. And there is something to that. Yeah. But hopefully there'd be some emotion to him wiping out some of the best parts of what we've seen of the MCU that we know.
Yeah.
Do you want to do the art quickly before we leave? That's the last piece that came out. And it's hard to, so.
Again, I asked someone about this and they told me that this is legit. Is it before the Russos or after? That's my thought about it.
You're right.
I don't know what to think about concept art. I mean, it's too early in this stage to really, if this is after the Russos, I don't know what's going on. All I know is I see these people on a concept art, but I don't know what's going on. We can only tell that things have changed, but there is no real narrative here to really put into stone as to what this may be based off of these, right? So it's concept art is concept art. It's concept, and what the story, again, it all depends on before or after the Russos came in. I tend to believe that this is before.
The one that kind of stands out is there's of the different pieces of art. So there's, first off, Doom is pictured in one of them. He's in a mask. Mm-hmm. Reed is chained, kneeling before him. Makes sense. I mean, that one makes sense to me. He is in a mask. I thought that was the one good thing. I was like, if it had been Doom with Downey's face on the chair, I'd have been like, uh-oh. But he at least is in the mask. The one that kind of is a giveaway about timing, I thought, was the Wakanda one, because that has Black Panther, it's the son, and it's Damson Idris is the person in the picture. And I'm not saying he won't be, but that felt kind of presumptuous. Like, I think if that was official, we would know it. So that just felt like the artist kind of being like, hey, I'm going to borrow a celebrity face, see what it looks like. So that's where I was kind of like, to your point, let's not assume that he's the new Black Panther just yet.
Yeah. So that's my thought process on the concept art.
You don't want to react to Hulk Village? You didn't have a reaction to the Hulk Village?
I think so less of the Hulk. Like, it's nothing to think about with the Hulk, man.
They had two aimed right at you because they had Hulk Village and they had Wong with the Young Avengers, and I was like, Pablo's gonna hate both of these.
Yeah, it's like I didn't care one lick about none of that. So
on the list of, we haven't even gotten to like the individual fears. They better not do this stuff for like Secret Wars. Is like, but because it's Kevin, I'm nervous. Is like, it better not be one of the Young Avengers who solves this problem. It better not be some idea coming from Iman Vellani or Haley Steinfeld. Like,
word up.
I'm sorry, it has to be Reed. He's the smartest man. Like, he has to be the guy who comes up with the idea.
Out. If I'm in the middle, you know how I'm gonna walk out. I'm not even gonna take the out. I'm gonna jump over chairs and just get out of there, running in terror. If that's the case.
But you can feel it though, because he just wants this Young Avengers thing, and I'm like, this would be so Disney and so new Kevin if he did something where it's like Iman Vellani comes up with like the stroke of genius that leads to how to defeat Doom. I'm gonna be like, oh my god,
yeah, yo,
it can't be that.
Yeah, the disappointment will be good for us, but the disappointment will be good for us in the sense that we'll have a lot to talk about on the show.
I know, but it's Reed's moment, man. That at the end of the day, I get that this is an Avengers movie, but like his joust with Doom is like, we have to see that. Like I'm not saying Reed has to do all the execution, but his mind has to go up against Victor Von Doom's, like, for real at some point in this sequence. And that sets the stage for the future too. That's what, because obviously we're hoping, I mean, I know they're going to have to stop Doom, but like, I don't want Doom to die in Secret Wars either. I want there to be a possibility of another round of this, happening in the future.
Yeah, but I don't know if, I mean, this is the fact that it's Robert Downey Jr. as Doom closes the possibility in my eyes, at least after Secret Wars and any new iteration of Doom, that he won't be the guy. Because let's say he does kill it, like he's like, then you gotta compete with that. How do you do so? I mean, obviously, whoever you choose, you just can't show that dude's face for a long, long time, and you just have to do which you can there.
I think to leave this on a doom note, I think your upside scenario, based upon everything we know, is Robert Downey's Doom is Jack Nicholson's Joker. That's your upside. Meaning, it's a show-stopping performance. It gains acclaim, but it's definitely not the character. You see what I'm saying? Like, Nicholson just took that character and handed up, and you're like, this is not really the comics Joker. Yeah. But I'm not hating watching it. He's doing an amazing job. And that's what I'm like, I think Downey will do a good job. It just won't it may not necessarily be Victor Von Doom that you're watching. So the way you're going to have to, you say, how do you compete with that? The way you compete with that is you do a ledger, right? You have to find a guy who's going to then inhabit the actual essence of Victor Von Doom down the road and sets that portrayal up as so different than what Downey did that you're like, both of these can exist and we can enjoy both. That's your upside, the way I see it. But
that was the thing that sort of like, I was, when Kevin said, let's do Doom right. Remember when he said that? That's like, what do you mean by that, yo? Let's do Doom right? What are you talking about? I understand Doom hasn't been done right, but which Doom are you giving us is the question. And what do you mean by what? That's I don't know. Just rubs me the wrong way almost.
You know, there was a time where anytime Kevin speaks, we still listen, but do you really listen anymore? I'm just saying, like, he says some, he's on this run of saying stuff we are kind of like, you know, I'm kind of reminded, there's a quote at the start of Rounders from Matt Damon's quoting Doyle Brunson, where he says, like, if you're in a room for 15 minutes and you can't spot the sucker, then you are the sucker. Yeah. Like, maybe Kevin is that guy in the room. Like, he's not actually the solution. He's actually the problem in the room. Like, he no longer I don't know. I'm just saying, this guy's a legend, but I'm like, the stuff he says, I kind of in one ear and out the other.
Yeah, you gotta question it. Like, the Marvels is going to be, all right.
By the way, this last tidbit, here's your number of the day. I don't know what to make of this because it's not a final number, but something that let slip apparently is that Quantumania cost Disney, I think it was upwards of $200 million, and obviously was a disappointment. Didn't make money. They're saying that Doomsday alone, at this point of the production, is tracking more than 2x the budget of Quantumania.
That's crazy.
$400 million plus budget for one movie.
A lot of pressure, man. That's a lot.
That means if that's true, they will have to clear 1.5 each on these two movies to even really make money, that any sort of money they would care about. Yeah. Because the ad blitz is going to be huge, right? So if you're spending $4, you're probably spending another $300, $400 on marketing. Like, you need more than double that. That's just the math. So you need to be 1.5, 160. That might be your break-even point. That's insane.
Yeah. Yeah, let us know in the comment section below what you guys think of what's happening with Avengers Doomsday and everything leading up to Secret Wars, the possibility of Spider-Man 4 being in between Doomsday and Secret Wars, because I think we think that's a good idea in terms of building the anticipation for what Secret Wars needs to be at the box office. Right? Because if Doomsday doesn't hit, perhaps Spider-Man does a fantastic job that gives them the life that they need in order for the box office for themselves to be successful, because that's what they want at the end of the day. We want a good movie. That's what we want. They want box office, but they know they got to deliver us a good movie and just not the faces. Obviously, the faces matter. Right? They matter in the sense that we know these characters and we're going to see something different. And again, because of the Russo's history with the genre and what they've given us, they are familiar with the storyline. So I'm hopeful that them and who's writing this again?
McFeely. Marcus? One of them's back to write it, not the other one.
Yeah. Because it was Marcus and McFeely, right?
Yes, correct. Only one of them came back to rewrite this. Yeah, not both. Yeah.
Let's see if he can do it by himself. Let's
if he can't, then we'll know.
I mean, with Robert Downey Jr. watching over his back, you change that line right there. I can see that.
That's the problem. Right? He is going to write it, but you may not know because Doom's part is going to be written by Downey.
Yeah, so just let us know in the comment section below what you guys think of those possibilities and your hope for what comes next for the Avengers. See you next time on the Nerd Gen Report.